The night it all began seemed ordinary. A summer barbecue, laughter spilling out into the backyard, neighbors waving from over the fence. But behind the warm glow of the lights, a secret was already being born. Claire, 46, elegant, respected, loved as the glue of her family, stood at the kitchen window, watching her son and his best friend toss a football across the lawn. The boy, Daniel, had been around for years. Sleepovers, late-night video games, road trips. To Claire, he had always been like a second son, until that summer. Now as he laughed, his shirt clinging to his chest from the heat, Claire felt something she couldn't explain, something she shouldn't have felt. Her heart skipped, once, then again. She shook her head, willing the thought away. He's just a boy, she told herself. Your son's best friend. Nothing more. But when Daniel's eyes met hers, just for a second, it was different. Not the gaze of a boy, not the gaze of a friend. Something lingered, something dangerous. And Claire knew, in that split second, that her life and her family's happiness would never be the same again. Stay tuned, because what happens next will show just how fast a perfect family can shatter. Later that night, after the barbecue was over, Claire moved through the quiet house, gathering plates and half-empty glasses. Her son was upstairs, laughing with Daniel, their voices drifting down the hall like they had 100 times before. But when Daniel came down alone to grab a drink, the air shifted. He opened the fridge, his tall frame filling the doorway, and when he turned, Claire was there, closer than either of them expected. For a moment, neither moved. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound between them. "Thanks for hosting, Mrs. Parker," Daniel said, his voice lower than she remembered. Claire smiled too quickly. "Of course, you're always welcome here." But then his eyes locked onto hers, not a glance, not polite. It lingered. And in that silence, Claire felt something rush through her she hadn't felt in years. Desire, dangerous, and forbidden. She looked away first, her pulse quickening. But the damage was already done. Because from that night forward, every look between them carried weight. Every smile carried risk. And every second alone was another step closer to the downfall of her family. Stay tuned, because the first secret is about to be kept. The next morning, sunlight poured into the kitchen. Claire was at the counter, pouring coffee, when Daniel walked in, barefoot, hair still damp from a shower, wearing one of her son's old t-shirts. She froze. For a moment, it was as if time itself hesitated. "Morning," he said casually, but his eyes carried something else. Something unspoken. Claire handed him a mug, careful not to let her fingers brush his, but Daniel didn't look away. His gaze lingered on her face, traveling lower for just a heartbeat before returning to her eyes. "You don't look like someone's mom," he murmured, almost under his breath. The words hit her like a spark to dry grass. Heat flared in her chest, spreading faster than she could control. "Daniel," she began, but stopped. What could she say? That he was wrong? That he was right? He took a sip of coffee, his lips curling into the faintest of smiles, as if he knew the war he had just ignited inside her. Claire's hand tightened around her cup, her breath shallow. She should have ended it right then, drawn the line. But instead, she said nothing. And silence, she would soon learn, can be the loudest invitation of all. The next move was his, and he was already planning it. That evening, Claire found herself alone in the living room. The house was quiet. Her son had gone out for the night, leaving Daniel behind to finish some homework. Claire tried to distract herself with the television, flipping through channels without seeing a thing. Her nerves buzzed. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The creak of the stairs, the hum of the air conditioner, her own heartbeat thudding in her chest. Then she heard it, footsteps, slow, coming closer. Daniel appeared in the doorway, a notebook in his hand. "Do you mind if I sit here? It's quieter than upstairs." Claire nodded quickly, too quickly, her throat dry. Of course. He sank into the sofa beside her, closer than necessary. Their shoulders almost touched. The notebook lay forgotten on his lap. For minutes neither spoke, the silence thick enough to choke her. Then it happened. His hand brushed hers, just a graze at first, but instead of pulling away, he let it linger. His fingers slid lightly against her skin, testing, waiting. Claire's breath caught. Every instinct screamed at her to move, to recoil, to say something, but she didn't. And Daniel, seeing no resistance, let his fingers close gently around hers. It was small, almost nothing. But to Claire, it felt like crossing a canyon in a single step. Her son's best friend was holding her hand. And the worst part? She didn't let go. It happened faster than Claire ever imagined. The night was quiet, the air thick with summer heat. Her son had fallen asleep early after a long day, the house wrapped in silence. Claire went downstairs for a glass of water, trying to shake the restless energy gnawing at her chest. Daniel was already there, shirtless, leaning against the counter, pouring himself a drink. Their eyes locked, and for the first time, no one looked away. "You know this is wrong," Claire whispered, though her voice shook, betraying the war raging inside her. Daniel stepped closer, then stopped me. Her breath hitched. His nearness radiated heat, his scent filling the space between them. Every rational thought screamed at her to walk away, to send him upstairs, to end this before it began. But when his hand cupped her face, when his lips hovered just an inch from hers, she didn't move. The kiss was fire, dangerous, desperate, unstoppable. Claire's back hit the counter as Daniel pulled her closer, his hands firm, claiming. For a fleeting moment, the world outside ceased to exist. There was no sun, no family, no rules. Only two people crossing a line they could never uncross. When it was over, Claire's chest heaved, her lips trembling. "This can't happen again," she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew the truth. It would. And it would destroy everything. The affair didn't take weeks to bloom. It took hours. That very night, after their kiss in the kitchen, Daniel followed Claire upstairs. She told herself she should stop him. She should close the door. She should protect her family. But when his hands slid over her shoulders, when his lips pressed against hers with the hunger of youth, her body betrayed her. She pulled him in, drowning in the thrill of what she denied herself for so long. The sheets tangled. The walls hurt everything. It was reckless. It was forbidden. It was unstoppable. And then the front door slammed shut. "Mom?" Her son's voice echoed through the house. Claire froze. Daniel's chest heaved against hers, his skin slick with sweat. "Stay quiet," she mouthed, her heart hammering so loud she thought it would give them away. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. A doorknob rattled down the hall. Claire shoved Daniel toward the closet, yanking the covers around herself. Her pulse roared in her ears as her son's voice grew louder. "Daniel, you here? Thought you were crashing at my place tonight." The bedroom door creaked open. Her son stepped inside. Claire's breath caught. Daniel's shoes still sat by the bed. Her son's eyes narrowed. And for one agonizing second, it looked like the perfect family she had built was about to collapse right then and there. Claire's son stood frozen in the doorway, his eyes flicking from the shoes on the floor to his mother sitting stiffly in bed. "Where's Daniel?" he asked, his voice sharp. Claire forced a laugh, her throat dry. "He went out. Must have left his things here." For a long moment, her son just stared at her. His jaw clenched. Something in his gaze said he didn't believe her, but he didn't push. With a grunt, he turned and left the room, slamming the door behind him. Inside the closet, Daniel exhaled slowly. Claire's knees gave way, and she nearly collapsed against the wall. "That was too close," she whispered. But Daniel only smirked, his voice low and unrepentant. "Made it more exciting, didn't it?" The next days blurred into stolen touches, hushed whispers, and locked doors. They became reckless, sneaking kisses in the kitchen, brushing hands at family dinners, slipping into each other's arms when the son went to shower. It wasn't love anymore. It was an obsession. And then came the breaking point. One evening, her son came home earlier than expected. He walked into the living room and froze. There, on the sofa, Daniel's hand was still on Claire's thigh. Silence. A silence so heavy it shattered everything. "What the hell is this?" her son shouted, his voice cracking, his face pale with betrayal. The moment Claire had dreaded had come. The secret was no longer a secret, and the happy family was already crumbling. The room shook with her son's voice. "You," he pointed at Daniel, his hand trembling. "Get your hands off my mother." Daniel rose slowly from the sofa, his face calm, almost smug. "Listen, man." "Don't call me man." Her son roared, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles whitened. "You were my brother, my best friend. And this, with her?" His voice cracked, the pain deeper than anger. Claire's body felt like it was made of stone. She reached for her son, but he flinched back as if her touch burned. Don't you dare," he spat. His eyes were wild, glistening with tears. "You ruined everything. You disgust me." Daniel stepped forward, his jaw set. "It's not what you think." Her son lunged. In an instant, fists collided, the sound of knuckles on flesh echoing through the room. Daniel staggered back, blood already pooling at his lip. Claire screamed, throwing herself between them, shoving them apart. "Stop it, please." But it was too late. The bond between her son and Daniel, years of brotherhood, laughter, trust, had shattered in a single night. And the worst part? It wasn't over. This was only the beginning of the family's downfall. The slam of the front door shook the walls. Claire's son was gone. She stood frozen in the silence he left behind, her hands trembling, her chest tight with a pain that no scream could release. Years of family dinners, birthdays, bedtime stories, all of it shattered in one night. And Daniel? He didn't follow. He didn't even look guilty. Instead, he wiped the blood from his lip with the back of his hand and laughed, a low, dangerous sound. "Now he knows," Daniel said, his eyes locked on Claire's. "No more secrets." Claire stared at him, horror and desire warring inside her. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I've lost him. My son will never forgive me." Daniel stepped closer, his presence filling the room. "Then you don't need him anymore." His words hit her like ice. Her son, her whole world, reduced to nothing in Daniel's mouth. And yet, when his hand slid against her cheek, when his lips found hers with raw force, she didn't push him away. Because the truth was, Claire wasn't just trapped, she was addicted. And Daniel knew it. The next days blurred into chaos. Claire barely slept, barely ate. She kept waiting for her son to return, to scream at her, to give her one last chance to make things right. But he didn't. His silence was louder than any words. And Daniel? Daniel stayed. At first, it was subtle, leaving his things in the bathroom, using her son's old chair at the dinner table. Then it became bolder, sleeping in her bed as if it had always been his, answering the phone when family called, pouring himself a drink in her kitchen without asking. One night, Claire finally snapped. "You can't just move in here, Daniel. This isn't your house." He didn't flinch. He stepped closer, towering over her, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with something dark. "Whose house is it then?" he whispered. "Your son's? He left you. He hates you. I'm the only one here. I'm the only one who wants you." Claire's breath caught, her body trembling. She wanted to scream, to throw him out, to take back control of her own home. But when he cupped her face, pressing his lips against hers with bruising force, her body betrayed her again. And that was when she understood the truth. Daniel wasn't just in her house anymore, he was in her life. And he wasn't leaving. Nights became unbearable. Claire would wake in the dark to find Daniel already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at her. His eyes glowed in the faint streetlight, unblinking, like a predator watching prey. "What are you doing?" she whispered once, her voice cracking. "Making sure you don't leave me," he murmured. "You can't, not after everything," she shivered. The next day, she found her phone gone, then her car keys. Every attempt at escape vanished before it began. Daniel was always one step ahead, always in control. When she confronted him, he smiled coldly. "I'm protecting us, from your son, from the world. They don't understand, Claire. They never will." Her stomach twisted. He spoke as if her son was the enemy, as if the boy she had raised was the threat, not him. And then came the final crack in reality. One night, Daniel brought a box into her bedroom. He placed it on the bed, opened it slowly, and inside was a stack of photographs. Photographs of her, sleeping, showering, driving. Claire's blood ran cold. "This way," Daniel whispered, brushing her hair back with a tenderness that made her skin crawl. "I'll never lose you." Not even for a second. Claire realized then, this wasn't love. It was possession, and she was already trapped. Claire waited until Daniel fell asleep. His arm draped across her like a chain, his breath hot against her neck. With trembling hands, she slid free, step by careful step, until her feet touched the cold floor. She tiptoed down the hallway, her heart hammering, the front door glowing like salvation. Her fingers reached the lock. "Where are you going?" his voice. Low, calm, too calm. She turned slowly. Daniel stood in the shadows at the top of the stairs, shirtless, a knife glinting faintly in his hand. "You think you can leave me?" he asked, his tone almost playful. "After what we've done? After what we've shared?" Claire's knees buckled. "Daniel, please, I just need to think." He descended the stairs one step at a time, each footfall echoing like a countdown. "No thinking. Thinking makes you doubt. Doubt makes you run. And I can't let you run, Claire." Her back pressed against the door. The cool metal of the knob dug into her spine. She wanted to scream, but the sound caught in her throat. Daniel reached her, his free hand cupping her cheek, the blade resting casually at his side. His smile was soft. "Terrifying. You're mine now. All of you. Forever." Claire's tears blurred her vision. There was no escape. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. A week passed in shadows. Claire lived like a prisoner in her own home. Daniel's presence everywhere, his clothes on the floor, his phone buzzing with numbers she didn't recognize, his eyes always on her. And then came the knock at the door. "Mom, it's me. Open up," her son. Claire's heart leapt and sank all at once. She rushed to the door, but before she could touch the handle, Daniel's hand clamped over hers. "Don't," he hissed, but her son was already pushing. The door cracked open, and then his eyes widened. There was Daniel, shirtless, standing behind his mother, one arm wrapped too tightly around her waist. The silence shattered. "You're still here?" Her son roared, shoving the door wide open. "After everything? After destroying my family?" Daniel smirked, stepping forward. "Your family was already broken. I just gave her what she wanted. That was the spark." Her son lunged, fists flying, rage boiling over years of betrayal. Daniel met him head-on, the two colliding with a violence that shook the walls. Claire screamed, torn between them, her voice breaking. "Stop, please stop." But neither listened. Because this wasn't just a fight. It was war, for her, for the house, for whatever was left of the family. And someone wasn't walking away unscarred. The struggle crashed through the living room, fists slamming, furniture toppling, glass shattering on the floor. Her son roared, pure rage exploding after weeks of silence. Daniel fought back with a brutal calm, every strike precise, his eyes burning with possession. Then Claire saw it, the knife. It slipped from Daniel's waistband during the fight, clattering onto the hardwood. Time froze. Her son lunged for it. Daniel dove too. The blade scraped across the floor, spinning between them. "Stop!" Claire screamed, her voice shredding her throat. But it was too late. Then Daniel's hand closed around the handle. With a vicious twist, he slashed forward. Her son staggered back, clutching his arm, blood seeping through his fingers. Claire's scream split the night. The neighbors were already outside, drawn by the chaos, their shouts piercing through the walls. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder with every heartbeat. Daniel stood over her son, the knife dripping, his chest heaving. He turned to Claire, his voice shaking but certain. "This is what it takes, Claire, to keep you, to keep us." Her son's eyes locked on hers, wide, desperate, full of pain and betrayal. And Claire realized in that instant that whatever choice she made next would decide not just who lived, but whether her family had any chance of surviving at all. The sirens cut through the night like blades. Red and blue lights painted the walls as the front door burst open. "Police! Drop the weapon!" Daniel froze, knife still glinting in his hand. His chest heaved, sweat dripping down his brow, eyes wild like a cornered animal. Claire stood between him and her son, arms spread wide, tears streaking her face. "Please, just stop. It's over, Daniel. It has to be." But Daniel only shook his head, a twisted smile curling his lips. "No, you're mine. You'll always be mine." The officers shouted again, weapons raised. Her son groaned on the floor, blood pooling at his feet. And in that impossible second, Claire knew she had to choose. She turned to Daniel, whispering one last time, "You were never mine to begin with." Then she shoved him back. The knife clattered, shots rang out. Daniel collapsed, his eyes wide with shock, his body crumpling onto the blood-stained floor. Silence. Claire sank to her knees, clutching her son's trembling hand, sobbing as the paramedics swarmed in. The house that had once been filled with warmth, laughter, and family dinners was now a crime scene. Her forbidden desire had destroyed everything, and nothing would ever be the same again. And so it ended, not with love, not with forgiveness, but with blood and silence. A family torn apart, a mother consumed by her forbidden desire, and a best friend who became a nightmare. Stories like this remind us, one secret, one decision can change everything. If you want more stories that shock, disturb, and make you question how far someone could go, subscribe now. Because the next one might be even darker,